the communications subcommittee for their work in getting the word out to the citizens to get out and vote, and especially the student volunteers who stood out in the bitter cold with signs and handouts at the polling sites to encourage voters to vote yes. And to all other volunteers who helped, we could not have done it without them. The Board of Finance passed these projects on to the people of Thompson, and the people spoke. We want these projects to go forward. This is the kind of enthusiasm we need to, as a community, to get things we need for our schools and our town. We have shown by working together, we can get things done. Now, as we entered the budget season, we need your enthusiasm more than ever to get this budget passed in its entirety. Help us stop the years of neglect at both the school and the town. Show up for the Board of Finance budget workshops. Let them know that you support the budget as it is and don't want any cuts. The school has operated on a shoestring for too many years, and we cannot continue to operate in this manner any longer. Let's make some noise at the Board of Finance meetings and let them know we are not going to let them cut us anymore. Let the citizens of Thompson speak on how the school should be funded. Thank you. I'll open the floor to citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments from the floor or Zoom? State your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Kaylee Beck. I live at 685 Fabian Road, North Grovenordale. I'm a junior at Turtelot. I have a lot to say in only a few minutes, so please feel free to ask me any clarifying questions after I'm done. My first concern has to do with the 70-30 grading system in the high school that was addressed at the Board of Education meeting on December 12, 2022, which I attended. I understand that all schools have standards that teachers must comply to when grading their students. However, us students believe a universal grading system that weighs summative assignments as heavily as ours does is unfair. We have never seen so much overwhelming anxiety about test grades than we have this year. Dr. Mayo recently stated that the amount of students on the second quarter honor roll for this academic year was the fewest since he began working here. The biggest change has not been student effort, but it's been the grading system. As mentioned, I attended the meeting in December. After seeing how this issue has been handled, my peers and I found ourselves surprised, uncomfortable, and quite frankly, appalled. One board member said it's something that they need to get used to, end quote. No changes were brought up or acknowledged, never mind made. A display of disregard for valid student concerns was projected and should be noted by students and civilians. My second concern has to do with the graduation date for the class of 2024. As mentioned, I am a member of this class. Our graduation date is currently set for June 14th, while the school year ends on June 6th. I have a visual if anyone would like one. The gratitude of the students in the junior class goes out to Superintendent Smith and the 2 board members who voted no for their support. There are students who find attending a graduation date that late trivial. Students have been brainstorming ways to have parking lot graduations instead of attending the scheduled one, so that the date is reasonable and students can get on with their summers at the same time as other students. We have worked for 13 to 14 years of our lives to have the reward of graduating before the school year ends. This is a traditional testament to seniors' hard work and is a celebration for them. By making graduation so long after the school year ends, you deprive us of this. As for the argument that we will have enough snow days to account for the delayed date, I would like to point out that we have had 1 snow day this school year and it is February. This schedule anticipates at least 7 snow days. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one.
Thank you.
It'd be hard to follow my daughter here. But here it goes. Good evening.
Your
My
name
is
and
Peter
address,
Beck.
sir.
Pardon?
Your name and address.
My name is Peter Beck. I'm at 685 Hagan Road,
Okay.
as mentioned before. Good evening. I've come tonight with a concern specifically about my child, but also generally about our children. I have a 4th grader who was recently given a congratulations card for his performance in our school spelling bee. He opened it and with an embarrassed question asked if we could read it to him. This was a sad moment for me as I realized He was way behind on his education. I assumed this was from the terrible codes. I emailed the ELA curriculum director to see when he would be finishing to learn reading and writing. His cursive was still basically hieroglyphics. It took her about 10 calendar days to find out that cursive is not currently taught in our school system. She found that reading and writing has taken a backseat to digital learning standards. I was horrified. I figured then that if she was unaware of this, then the board probably was not. As it seems from every board meeting I've watched, scores seem to always be coming up in the discussion. I have a suggestion. Let's finish teaching our kids to read and write. You'd be hard pressed to find a serious scientist that says typing is anywhere near as good as writing when trying to commit things to memory. Digital learning standards sounds fancy, but as I'm putting 2 kids through the system, there isn't nearly enough digital learning being taught in this regard. Push years of learning cursive to the back burner. If I'm hiring someone straight out of college and I'm choosing between 2 candidates, there is no way I would choose somebody who cannot read and write. I can't believe that we can look at each other in the eye and say, yep, they can read 90% and write 50% of our language. And that has to be good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Tom Angelo, Board of Education member, Turtle Lot, President of the Trust, an alumni of Turtle Lot Memorial High School, and I'm going to speak to you as a resident, not as a Board of Education member. A number of years I had 3 children that went through the school. And every time my children were seniors, we had a difficult decision of planning a senior trip. That senior trip would end up getting changed because of school cancellations, snow days, etc., causing undue rest for PTOs, for parents, and for students trying to figure out how they're going to do graduation, how they're going to do their class trip, what are they going to do with their deposits that were down. Hence the reason the Board of Education decided that it would always be the 2nd Friday in June. To accommodate PTOs that came here and pleaded their case. So we finally, when I became on board, it was finally decided 4 years ago, 5 years ago. That's the reason, no other reason. It has no disregard for any student, any parent, any situation. It was to always have an established date. This is an anomaly of a year for snow days. We've never had one day in my 16 years of being on a Board of Education. But I'm speaking to as a resident, so I apologize. I totally agree with you. It is appalling. When I have a daughter that graduated 3 years ago and she can't write a check. So the basics, I agree, are no longer, but that's not us. Can we change that? Hopefully. But these are also mandates and different learning techniques or whatever that has come on to us from state and federal mandates. Unfortunately. Thank you.
I'm going to speak in citizens' comments as a citizen. Danielle Carlson, 3 Rachel Drive, North Gordon, Connecticut. I want to speak as a parent with a child who is struggling with the current grading system in the high school. It is causing a lot of anxiety for her personally. We're struggling with schooling. Dr. Mayo has been great. He's going to speak with her, but I do think that we have created a situation where they are in pressure cookers with the percentage being so high for testing, because if they're not prepared for the test, they're not going to do well. And we need to make sure these kids are prepared before we have them test and it be such a big part of their grading. So as a parent, I do have to acknowledge what our student here has said, that, you know, this fact that it is a pressure cooker for them, because I see it in my own home with my own child. As far as with the graduation, I was one of the board members that said, you know, I didn't agree with it. I just feel like it's kind of hard to have these kids come back after the school year to graduate. I think that's a kind of an unrealistic expectation for them. To have to return to school to graduate, have teachers return to the school to attend a graduation. They could be planning out their summer vacations and whatnot. So that's my feel on that. And then as far as cursive, I think none of our kids should be in middle school, go on to middle school if they can't sign their name in cursive, and they have to know the alphabet. And I remember just being in school with my little notebook, doing the A's, B's and C's, but I have 2 of my 3 kids that can't sign their names. So, and again, I know it's not a curriculum, it's not in the curriculum anymore. The state has said that that's not important, but I think maybe we should make that of importance some way, somehow. And that's my spiel.
Is there anybody on Zoom before I make my comment? Give them the option first. All right, Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. I'm gonna make my comment as a parent. While I don't yet have a student in high school, I will have 2 that will be there eventually. I understand the reasoning why the graduation date was set as it was. However, that was done prior to state law being changed. I'm of the personal opinion that we set a graduation date. That's the date that PTOs or project graduation can work with. So then they're not going to be in the loss of losing their deposits, because they know what date graduation is. They know what weekend they can do their trip. The graduation is for students. It's not for us. It's not for teachers. It's for them. My personal opinion on that. I don't have experience with the grading system. It's concerning to hear that we have students, especially several bright ones, that are having concerns with that. So it's something I'd like to see addressed. And in regards to cursive, I know prior to 2020, when my daughter was in 3rd grade, they had cursive. She writes in cursive. So I'm not sure when that essentially changed, but again, echoing Danielle's comments, I'd like to see that if we can. Being able to sign a check while that's kind of going out of style, they still need to be able to do that. Or for any other type of documents that's.
Or even be able to read it.
Yes,
Yeah.
being able to read it, that's an even bigger project, so.
One of my 3 does not know how to tell time.
Oh,
And
geez.
again, we struggled with him on that too. So you're absolutely right. But again, it's some of the basics are not being taught, and I don't know.
Right, something to bring back to the legislator on lobbying the board of the state BOE to adjust those.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question to the superintendent is, it's not our place as the Board of Education to direct curriculum. But can we, as a district, teach things that's not required by the state? We can go above and beyond, right? So
Absolutely.
teaching cursive, I don't know what is taught in elementary school, but teaching cursive, teaching head read, hands on a clock, things like that, if they're getting skipped to meet some state requirement, then perhaps we should carve out a little bit of time and get those. I know that teachers are under pressure to
Right.
meet the whatever dictates the almighty state gives us, but got to get some logic and maybe get some anachronisms back in there. And
I'm not sure what research the ELA curriculum director did on handwriting overall, so I need to touch base with her. As far as the grading system at the high school, that is something I can talk to Dr. Mayo and his team. That was a well thought out decision. And as far as what was the third thing?
Graduation.
The graduation date, I have brought a calendar. That if the board decides to discuss that later on the agenda, I can make a suggestion.
Citizens comment.
It's citizens comment. Yes.
Trish Chupai, I am a resident of Thompson, but I'm speaking tonight on behalf of being a teacher. I'm business ed and checks are taught in school how to write. I have cursive books because they do come up without having the knowledge of how to sign their names. If they take personal finance or money management, which is becoming part of our capstone one, they will get that. So it is offered at the high school level, so that they are financially literate, which is one of our pillars on our POG. So if they come through my classroom, they do a practice unit on checkbook on paper first, having to know how to reconcile it before we do a digital copy where they can keep it on a spreadsheet. Number one. Go ahead, another question?
I was just gonna say, and again, I hate saying that when we were in school. We all went through typing. It was, you had to go through typing and you sat there.
Correct.
You had to go through business class. You had to.
Those
And now
typing
these are
is-
electives, right?
It is an elective.
Okay.
It is becoming a graduation requirement that they're going to need to take a financial literacy course,
Good.
beginning with the class of 2025.
Okay.
So they are getting that instruction at the high school level.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. And like I said, I bought one of those little cursive books at one of the dollar stores and I have them there and I practice with the kids so they can each sign their own name by themselves.
But as of right now, it's an elective until.
It's an elective,
2025.
correct, and it's one of the courses that the eighth graders are able to take as eighth graders and get the high school credit. So it's being addressed and has been, so one of your three have taken personal finance, but the other two did not. But they also learned check writing in accounting classes.
That one is now on his way for a CPA, so.
So that's the first thing I want to address. The second thing I want to address is the formative versus summative. Being a CTE teacher, I do projects which are part of the summative piece. So hopefully more teachers are doing it and just not as testing. So anything that they're doing as a culminating project are going in that perspective, at least in my classroom. So we're hoping that that gets done in more classrooms as we go forward if the policy states at 37. So there are other opportunities and they have the opportunity to retake one according to the policy at the high school, so per quarter. So there are some ways to work around them. That's all I want to say for now.
No, thank you for the clarification. That's good.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is Tara Heffernan. I live at 11 Quadic Road, Thompson, Connecticut. And I'm gonna talk about the 70-30, like one of my peers has. I'm a junior and I found this year very stressful. Yes, junior year is the hardest year of high school, but I am taking tests and I am working my hardest and I have good grades and I'm trying. And so are all of my peers, just like Haley. And I don't get a good grade on one, or I don't get a good grade on another one, but I have good grades on all of my other assignments. And I'm taking my time and I'm doing them, and I get one bad grade and my test, it drops my grade down. And not only is that stressful on me, even though I am trying my hardest, but on all the other kids in the other classes, especially in the APs. I am in AP biology, and I was talking with some of the students in the grades below me, and they've talked to me about how they do not want to take APs because they are so stressed about the tests and how low their grade could be if they do bad on it. And I study, and I know Kaylee studies, and I know multiple people in my classes do study for their tests, and we still don't do as good as expected because we can't just go off of the tests. We also have to count into the work. And Miss Tupai does do projects and other teachers do projects, but a lot of them are just test-based, like the AP classes and the honor classes, which is what's taking us down. But it's also making a larger part on the anxiety and mental health level in the school system. A lot of the kids are having breakdowns, you can see that. And a lot of kids have to step out of class to take a breather because they can't handle it because it's too stressful. As for 70-30 to be our grading ways without it being more lenient, because some students are struggling in school and some people don't have the best grades as others. And some of them can't do good on tests. Like some people aren't good at tests. We can't just base our students off their tests during the curriculum. We have to base them off their work and how hard they try and their participation. Thank you.
To that was a great comment, but to piggyback off that, should there be a percentage of that 70 that is projects for every teacher as opposed to just strictly being testing? Because I'm kind of thinking in some way it should be 70-30, your 70 should be mixed like a 30-40 with projects. It should be a mixture, because if it's just all test scores, not all students are great testers.
I don't know.
I don't think the problem is with the policy. I think the problem is that it's not being applied universally. And then projects aren't being weighted the same in every class. So that is something I know Dr. Mayo has been working on. And that does need to be addressed. Because we need to make sure that there is universal grading at the high school. So Dr. Mayo.
I don't want this, I don't so for residents. Every high school around us is almost every high school is 80-20, that was the other principle. I came from 80-20, which was always, and the reason why is it's based off the college model of when you go to college, your exams are usually 100% of your grade. So about 6 years ago in high schools, they started going to a universal grading policy, those best practice. So when we came down here, we had an issue last year where I had a student that missed work in 2 classes. Student was in National Honor Society. Student made up all their tests in 1 class, did really well, that type of thing. The student then raised back up to an A. The other class they went in, they did all their tests, everything they did really well, but they missed their homework and whatever, and they ended up with a C. Student got removed from National Honor Society. The parent came to me and said, well, why don't you have a universal grading system? I said, at that point, to be honest with you, as awful as it's going to say, I was only 2 months, 3 months into the job here. I said, I thought we did. I didn't know we didn't. I met with the staff. I asked the staff what they thought was fair. We went to 80-20. They said, not 80-20. They can't do 80-20. I said, okay, what's 70-30? What about 70-30? And I build in, they can make up 1 quarter. So that's what we decided on. We're going to do 70-30. Now, having said that, I have met with the staff maybe 4 or 5 times, and I've explained to them what a summative grade is. We should be utilizing projects. We should be utilizing papers in English. It shouldn't only be exams. Now, some of them have said, well, AP curriculum is really more based around exams or whatever. Well, then, build in other something. It doesn't have to just be listed something. You can build your own something. So it's a learning process from there too. But we have already gone 10% lower than all the surrounding high schools at 80-20, which is general practice. So we went to 70-30 and we built in a retake policy that not every other school had in order to help the kids. And just to tell you why we had the lower numbers that we had is because when we came out, usually last year when we had intercession, we had intercession at the beginning of the year, we had a middle year. And the kids already had in their head what intercession was. Now all of a sudden we came to intercession just to begin in the middle of the year. We had the highest failure rate in intercession that we've had, and that's what wiped out our higher honor roll. Almost, I think it was 56% of our students had 1 F.
Write them out. Read.
So that's what killed us for our honor roll. It wasn't this grade, to be honest with you, Q1 was one of the highest honor rolls we've had since I've been here, and the grading system was in place before that. So it was the difference between Q1 and Q2 was the intercession. And our kids really thought, a lot of our kids thought intercession was they thought it was like frivolous, that it wasn't a bit, and we kept telling them, we did calls home, it's important, you have to take it serious. And a lot of them didn't, and that's really what harpooned our honor roll, to be honest.
Well, the new schedule next year will fix that.
Yes.
So that won't be an issue, but I still believe there's work to be done at the high school. Obviously, if you can go in 1 class and have an A and then go in another class and have a C. So there has to be some calibration here and something to correct that moving forward. Dr. Mayo, I'm going to ask you to meet with your teachers. You have a faculty meeting this week that needs to be on the agenda so that we can start to address that because we certainly don't want to stress out our students. We want to keep the bar high. We want to teach grade level standards, right? But we also don't want to push them over the edge so that they're here upset because they can't seem to maintain those grades. So let's work with the teachers on making that a little bit more uniform across grade, from grade to grade.
Class to class. Okay, we have 2 comments, class to class. 2 comments within the chat. I'm gonna have Danielle read them out.
Julie Maliff at 277 Aquatic Town Farm Road. My daughter is a second grader at Mary Fisher, and every week she comes home with math homework where she practices telling time on an analog clock. Out of the curriculum.
That's
Okay, so this week,
I have April LeVake from 321 Brandy Hill Road. I also would like to extend my concern with the 70-30 grading system. It definitely doesn't benefit the high achiever students. My son in particular, who does very well in all courses, is struggling and pushing harder with this grading system, bringing his average grade down due to the system. It definitely is a major challenge and high anxiety for him this year. The frustration is beyond unbearable to see him struggle and feel like he didn't do well enough. We have to do better for our high achievers and look at the full picture. Please look into this as it is affecting several students. Thank you.
all right.
Catherine, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I want to say to the students that are here, thank you for coming tonight and talking to us. It's nice, we have a board liaison, but it's nice to hear from you. And I just want to say you articulated yourselves very well. So thank you for saying that, and I know that I can come across in a gruff manner sometimes. We don't make these decisions, out of spite or anything. So I'm sure we will look at, all of it. So, but thank you very much for coming here, and I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm sure they probably all agree that it's nice to hear from the students. So thank you for coming.
Yes,
I'm again going to talk as a citizen as well. Heather Santos, 77 Hagstrom Road. Just on the 70-30, I know Dr. Mayo and I had a conversation several months ago because my son also was having issues with the grading system. You did explain it very well to me. It made a lot of sense with your explanation. There were a couple of his teachers who were not necessarily following the rules exactly as I think they were intended. After you had talked with them, a lot of that kind of evened itself out. I will say that his observation though, with it in general, is that he feels as though having only 30% be the class participation and the everyday work, it does not reward students to actually participate and actually do the everyday work, which as a result will probably yield them lower grades because they're not doing the work. My son does the work, but he's witnessing in his class, a lot of kids that why do it if it's only 30%. So I just wanted to throw that out to you. I know you did talk with me, and like I said, things did get better after you spoke. But just to kind of reiterate that this is not a one-off kind of issue, and my son is a high achiever as well. So, I think it is affecting not only those folks, but the other folks as well.
Yeah, my daughter's not a high achiever and it's affecting her, so it's all across the board, so. You know.
all right, then. We're ready to move along now, or? Okay, student spotlight and our liaison report. And we have so many people.
February 2023 Board of Ed liaison report. On 1/27, the TSLP in-service with TMHS semester was in honor recognition ceremony. On 2/4, CMEA all-state auditions occurred. On 2/6, the Cereal Box Challenge was launched. On 2/7, TMHS yearbook photos for clubs, activities, work of sports, and senior panorama and student council meeting occurred. On 2/7, 2/13, and 2/28, the TMHS library offers a series of movies to celebrate Black History Month. Glory, 42, and Hidden Figures. On 2/17 will be the TMHS Pride Day. On 2/10 was progress reports. On 2/14, the Modern Music Ensemble performs lyrical love grams. On 2/20, FBLA is the ice skating trip. On 2/24, the TSLT in-service will occur, and on 3/1, the TMHS pop cons will happen. And here are the student voice forms. There is a concern over no study halls for students next year. A student wrote in a concern that there are no study halls planned for next year for next year's planned A/B block schedule. There is a concern that there will not be enough time for students to get their homework done, especially if they are taking college level courses and are involved in after-school activities. Members of the student council expressed that they are hopeful that within a 90-minute block that teachers will give some class time to work on assignments, thus enabling students who use the time wisely not to be overwhelmed with homework every night. And then the graduation date for 2024. The graduation date for the 2024 class is placed on June 14th, 8 days after the last day of school on the 6th. The latest student board former expressed that placing the graduation date so far late from the last day of school would detract the event that they have worked so long and hard for to achieve. This scheduling may create a situation where attendance and at the event decreases for graduates, families, and teachers. It was proposed for the graduation date of the class 2024 should be moved to June 7th, to Friday of the last day of school. Many of the student leadership teams present at the student council meeting agreed that the graduation date should be changed. Any questions?
Okay, and then the student spotlight for the month of January. Each month, Turtle Rock Memorial High School Student Spotlight Program recognizes a student who has demonstrated outstanding achievement, character, leadership, attitude, and/or contributions to the school and community. January Student Spotlight honoree is senior Kayla Vitello, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. Kayla was nominated by Corey Costacopoulos, Allison Tebow, Mrs. Anderson, and Mrs. Brody. Kayla's friend Allison says, Kayla puts all of her time into making everyone around her happy, no matter what. She is always putting the needs of others in front of her own and proves to be a wonderful friend. This past year, Kayla has opened up and shown how talented and amazing she really is. I am so proud of each and every one of her accomplishments and can't wait to see what she does next. Corey adds in Kayla's nomination, she's a top student who has essentially built the diversity club from the ground up. Mrs. Anderson says, dedication, hard work, and kindness are Kayla's notable strengths. Tackling lead roles in our musicals, being the assistant student conductor for our choir, president of Diversity Club, and singing the national anthem for countless community events demonstrates just how active and dedicated Kayla is to her educational experiences. Kayla will always offer to help anyone for any reason. A born leader, Kayla doesn't shy away from any adversity. Instead, she takes it on headfirst with positive energy. I'm so happy to have gotten the chance to know Kayla over these past few years, and I look forward to seeing the absolutely amazing things in her future. Finally, Mrs. Prouty adds, Kayla is a wonderful person who brings a positive and kind spirit to class. She's really the type of student that any teacher would be lucky to have. She is hardworking, driven, kind, and thoughtful. Not only is she a talented artist, she's involved in so many clubs and activities such as yearbook, leadership, drama, and diversity, which is a testament to her willingness to help others. I feel lucky to have gotten to know her over the past 4 years and cannot wait to see the phenomenal things I know she will accomplish. While consistently achieving high honors throughout high school in courses such as AP Art, Kayla leads in several school clubs and organizations and has performed in several musical productions, both inside and outside of school, including Beauty and the Beast, The Great Gatsby, Turtle's Got Talent, and Broadway Stars. Kayla will also be playing the character Bert when Mary Poppins hits the stage in the Thompson Schools Auditorium beginning March 24th. When asked what motivates her, Kayla says, what motivates me is being able to make things happen. I enjoy making people smile and making a difference in my school. When whatever event I've been preparing for finally happens, it makes all of the work worth it. I strive to bring people together through theater and my leadership in the Diversity Club. About her future, Kayla states, this school offered me a wonderful opportunity when I was able to play Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast last year. I had always loved musicals, but it unlocked a love for performing I didn't know I had. From every role I play and audition for, I learned something new. And because of that, I feel this need to keep performing after high school. I plan on going to college for musical theater, but I would also like to start an electrical company with my dad one day. My dream is to one day be able to open my own local theater for other dreamers like me, but I'm ready and excited for whatever the future may bring. Finally, Kayla's message to her school and community is, no matter what challenges life throws at you, getting involved is the best way to meet new people and create wonderful experiences. A little bit of kindness can go a long way and make it a mission every day to go out of your way to make one person feel good. I'm so thankful for all of my friends that have been along the journey with me this past year. Congratulations, Kayla.
Okay, next we are honored to have Senator Jeff Gordon, who represents the Quinnebog portion of Thompson here to discuss matters in the state Senate, which is in session now, concerning education and anything else that we want to discuss with him. So first I'm going to introduce Senator Jeff Gordon, who lives in Woodstock.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
In case you don't remember, Thompson got split up in redistricting. So you have two state senators. You still have Senator Flexer, who covers most of the town. And I cover the 35th district, which is 13 towns, including my hometown of Woodstock, where I'm chairman of planning and zoning still. And I cover part of Thompson. So even though I'm covering part of Thompson, I still view the whole town. Just like I cover part of Ellington, I have to look at the whole town. So I basically tell people I'm one of the senators for Thompson. There's a lot that we're doing in the state senate. We went into session January 4th. This is what we call a long year. Long year means that it's just more months we can create trouble. We go until sometime in June, and then who knows how many special sessions we'll have. But this is a year where any legislator or agency, and the governor, can propose anything under the sun. So we have thousands and thousands of bills that we're sorting through. Just not education, but you name it, there's a bill for it, it seems. I have a number of bills. Some of them happen to be about education. I'm on public health. I'm a doctor, so being on public health makes sense. I'm on Veterans Affairs. I'm on Appropriations, which is the committee that deals with everything about the state budget. And I happen to be, I think, on all of the subcommittees dealing with education. So I'm already pouring through tons and tons of documents, including a boatload I got today for meetings tomorrow about everything being proposed about what the state wants to do with education. I'm also on public safety and a number of caucuses as well, such as the rural caucus to cover the small towns. I won't go into every single thing we're doing because literally everything is being touched right now by the state budget. But education is a big thing. You may have heard in the news that the governor has proposals. A lot of people have proposals. There's this big monster bill that we call 5003. It's House Bill 5003. It's wending its way through. It is one of the big gigantic bills. We refer to them as aircraft carrier bills because everything seems to land in it. It is making its way through appropriations. It is a leadership bill to try to see what to do with funding education. The state has a lot of money, but that doesn't mean the state actually has a lot of money after this year. The state still has a huge amount of federal ARPA money that it hasn't fully used yet. But that money is going to go away. The state also is massive surpluses. A lot of that is because of taxes when things cost a lot. And the state has raked in a huge amount of sales tax. As the inflation rate drops, that money is going to disappear. And we want the inflation rate to go down. So that will mean less money the state's going to bring in. But there's a big effort to see what to do with the education cost sharing grants. There's a big push to try to accelerate up what the towns are scheduled to get over several years. That is roughly at least 300 million that the state would have to put into its budget. It might be more depending on what people put in to that, but that's trying to say the money that is already earmarked over several years to towns like Thompson, just move it up front. The thinking is we're going to be facing a fiscal cliff when all of that Fed money goes away. And then what do towns do? And the state's going to say, you figure it out. What that means is property tax increases. And nobody wants that. So the state's trying to figure out how to pay for that. The downside is I'm not hearing a lot of discussion about how that's going to be paid for after this budget we're trying to craft for the next 2 years. That's a big problem that the state has. Budgets for 2 years at a time. And then it says, well, we'll just deal with it in 2 years later. But there's a group of us, a large number of us, who are trying to see what we can do more long-term to make it sustainable. Because the thing I would hate is to say to Thompson, hey, we're going to give you a boatload of money. And then 2 years later, we say, well, we don't have it. So now you figure it out type of thing. And all that's doing is taking a fiscal cliff and just pushing it. But yet the legislature can say, but we gave you money. But there's really more sustainability. The other aspect is that what can we do with this bill to try to help the towns that really are under pressure of property taxes to pay for education? I'm a believer, and I've said this for years, that public education is a government responsibility. I don't think the state does enough, quite frankly. And there's a lot of people who feel that way. The issue is going to be how do we craft all this money that one can try to repurpose to public education, but come up with a formula that's gonna be fair for the rural towns. The cities get a lot of money and the big suburbs get a lot of money. But the issue is the formula is not helpful for the towns. And in my district, other than Vernon, I have a lot of small towns. And that's a really, really big issue. That is setting up a big fight between all the legislators who represent the cities and the big suburbs, and there are a lot of them, and all the rest of us that cover small towns, such as Northwest Connecticut, Northeast Connecticut. So it's going to be interesting how we play that out, but there's a lot of talk about how to change that formula. We did go into I guess emergency session recently, last week. I don't know why it was an emergency, but evidently it was because we had to deal with certain bills. Not so much school lunch, but other bills that I don't know why they were an emergency, but we did. It was bills that bypassed the committee process, no public input, but we did accelerate up and increase up some special education funding, the different tiers, and try to fund things a little bit better percentages, not 100%. But did increase some of these tiers by 15% in absolute percentage increase. Yes, that is money that the state's going to pay additional. One of the problems is there isn't a plan for how do we deal with that in the second half of the budget that we're crafting and beyond that budget. So that's hopefully going to be put into. We'll see if that gets put into this big monster education bill, but there's other bills that are being pushed through education. I have one that got taken up by the education committee to see how we better handle that. The formula we know has to be reworked. Again, to help small towns, not so much funnel money into the cities. But again, that's going to be interesting how that formula plays out. I have 2 alliance districts in my district. That is an issue as far as how we handle that. That's a whole separate bill somewhat being looked into, but it's going to come into appropriations, no matter what. Another thing that I'm pushing on, I submitted bills on this, and I've had meetings with the Department of Education, some of which I don't get answers, but that's an answer. If they can't give me an answer, is a lot of these unfunded mandates. We are awash with unfunded mandates in almost everything. And there is an effort to try to look at that. I've actually asked questions, which is more along the line is, what do you do with all these unfunded mandate reports? Where actually are they? Has anybody looked? And I was given links to archives that they have. I told them that wasn't my answer. I still haven't gotten my answer, but I did remind them that when they come before me at appropriations to present their Department of Education budget, I'll be asking those questions. And then we'll see what I think about their presentation, because it's a burden of time, we know, a burden of resources. I have no idea what they do with a lot of this stuff. And so I'm hopeful that we can try to rework some of that. Not that all of these things are bad. I'm not in favor of unfunded mandates. I think if the state feels it's important and has made a policy decision, then this is what should be done, should pay for it, basically. Otherwise, if it's that important, it shouldn't just be dumped on towns. I see it in my town of Woodstock as a town official, and it drives me nuts. So I don't know what traction we're going to get, but there seems to be leadership, seems to be understanding that this also hurts the cities with a lot of this unfunded mandate. So maybe there might be some changes, but again, that gets into money, what the state is willing to pay. I think if the state is on the hook for paying for some of these things, it will just say some of these mandates aren't needed. Quite frankly, because it's too easy just to vote for a mandate and be done with it. Other things with education are also getting into infrastructure. There's a lot of talk about whether or not the state's going to spend more money, not so much for grants that districts fight over, but really actually put more money into infrastructure. I've been hearing a lot about that. All this adds up to hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. At a time that we have a lot of other education issues dealing with UConn coming in with around a $2 billion budget request for the next 2 years, and the rest of the state universities that get funded, which again are several billion. So it's going to be interesting how all these numbers get played out. But there is a serious effort to see what to do about better funding education. One of the things that I would ask is make certain that the small towns get heard. I'm trying to make my voice heard, and I'm one of the chairs of the rural caucus, so I do speak loudly when we're there. And the chair of appropriations is a member of the rural caucus, so she has a number of small towns, Senator Austin. But we just need to make certain that legislators hear as much as possible. So I'm happy to hear from people. I get hundreds of emails a day from 13 towns. But there's a lot of legislators who I know are not hearing much about this, which is interesting because it's a big issue. So definitely let your legislators know what you like, what you don't like, especially when it comes to funding public education, because these decisions are being made. And one of the things that we have to be mindful of is most of these decisions are not made when we're sitting there in committee. They're actually made outside of the committee meetings. That's really how it works. When we go to committee, we do have a lot of debate and discussion. A lot of decisions are already set. There's already vote counting. Things are not brought up for vote at a committee if there hasn't been vote counting by the majority party. And when it comes to the Senate floor, it never makes it unless there's a guarantee it's going to pass, basically. So a lot of it is not so much being there and giving your 3 minutes of testimony during 24-hour or whatever public hearings. It's otherwise letting us know and letting all your legislators know, which is very, very, important. And you don't have to be one of their constituents. You can certainly reach out to the chairs, say, of Education Committee. I have chairs of appropriations and the ranking members as well. They actually do listen to this stuff. I'm a ranking on veterans, and I have people from around the state reaching out to me, and I listen to what they have to say. So we really have to make certain we can continue to strongly advocate for what needs to be done. There's a lot of other education things coming out and a whole host of different policies and things like that. I don't really know where they're going to go. Some of them so far don't seem to be getting any traction to get out of a committee. And if it doesn't get out of committee, it really doesn't go anywhere. Quite frankly, you have to survive the committee process, then it can work its way through. But I would say pay attention to Education Committee and Appropriations Committee, because we're having joint meetings and things are being hashed out as a combined committee, so to speak, to figure out how we're going to take a lot of the policy stuff that Education Committee is talking about and appropriations, which is how we're going to pay for it at a time that I'm not planning to vote for tax increases. And the governor is on the record of telling us, and I was there in a front row when he presented it last week, that he wants to cut some taxes. Which is fine, but it means that we have to be wiser with how we spend our money and repurpose what the state does with some of its money. So there's going to be, I think, a big clash on appropriations about who gets to spend what money, because there's a big surplus. And a lot of people want to spend it. But again, it's going to come down to how the towns are going to sustain it once the state says it's run out of that surplus, which we've been there before. So we just need to be wise with how that money gets spent. But there's a lot of other things that are going on that don't have to do with education. Again, this is a long session, so everything under the sun is up, and the committees are massively active. I have 4 committee meetings overlapping with each other during the day tomorrow, just on lots of bills that are out there. So, and all the agencies are presenting to us, including Department of Education. Has to present to us and explain why they want their money and what they're going to do with the money. So my sense is they're going to be their feet are going to be held to the fire about why they want to spend the money they want to do and how much of it is going to direct student education, how much is going to help the teachers, how much is going to infrastructure. I think they're going to be put under the microscope this year for their requests, because I think they're going to be requesting a lot more than they have in the past. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Jeff, I'm going to have open it to the board first.
Happy to hear from people.
Okay, the board first, and then I'll have.
Yeah, whoever is.
Yes. Bill.
Dr. Gordon, thank you for being here. We really never see anybody from the state at our meetings. I think our biggest unknown here in this town is the special education costs, as it is all over the place. But it's very frustrating when we get the reports and we see the excess cost reimbursements. And the other side of the state is sometimes reimbursed 110%, where we're getting 70%. We're the forgotten corner. Anything east of the river, it's as though Hartford doesn't care. And we could argue all day about why there's a big surplus. I think we're overtaxed, but all that money, we are an alliance district, and since less than 3% of our taxes come from industry in this town, it's all on the homeowner. And the homeowners just can't afford it anymore. So if anything, if you take anything from this meeting, special education costs are so important to these small towns. Because and we've heard before where money should follow the student, and that never seems to happen, but it's a very transient population in this town. And we have a lot that move in, some move out, not as many move out as move in, but it's killing us. It's absolutely killing us, and nobody listens. So I'm glad you're here to listen.
I appreciate being here. The past several weeks, I've been in a lot of meetings around the district about education, including one today that I was on. So it is a real issue. I agree with you. The way the formulas are set are not fair to small towns, absolutely. The reality is that a large number of legislators, just not in the Senate, but in the House, where there's a lot more of them, really come from the cities and they come from the suburbs, because that's where the population is. So of course, there's more of them. So there is that fight. And when you look at the towns, and I've been pouring through a lot of data tables to see how, not just the towns in my district fare, but all around the state, you can really see how skewed it is. So the issue to me is in what do we need to do to better fund things, but also how do we make it more fair? Because if we just put more money in and use the same formula, town like Thompson, town like my town of Woodstock really doesn't get ahead. It's just going to have to go to property taxes to fund, what's being required, which really, I agree with you, people just can't sustain. So to me, it's really reworking the formula. That's going to be a big discussion at, I can tell you, at appropriations and education. There's a reason why those two big committees are having joint meetings, because what we're discussing is overlapping. And we need to be making joint decisions, because if education decides one thing and appropriation decides another, appropriation somewhat wins because we send out the budget to be voted on, and then it could become a mess on the House floor and the Senate floor. So we'll see where that goes, but there is a big push to try to rework the formula. But again, it's really at times trying to yell and scream, and sometimes we have to play the process game to hold things up or do whatever to get our voices heard. There's already been some of that behind the scenes to try to get the message out, as much as we can. But we just have to face the reality that we're pushing a little bit uphill because the number of rural legislators is smaller than the number of urban legislators, and they look at things very differently as far as what they're looking for money. So they're just really looking for big money, and then they don't want to change the system because the system works. The formulas, they really don't want to, but I think the formula will change. It depends upon to what degree. I'm waiting to hear more from the governor's office and the governor himself. I have a meeting coming up, I think in a couple of weeks, another meeting with the governor to really discuss it, but they're not really saying too much. So it's going to be how much he wants to move the formula, because that will carry weight and which way he wants to go. And it's interesting, they're kind of, whenever I've been in the meetings with them, they're kind of not saying much, other than they recognize something has to change. But I agree with you, we do need to.
Maybe we should invite the governor here too. then.
He knows where this area is. He likes coming to the Woodstock Fair. I can tell you that as a past acting president of the Woodstock Fair. He did come last year. And I did joke with him after his budget presentation last week, come on back. So he does know where it is. We'll see if he comes out, but
It's not an election year. I don't think you'll see.
well, the way I look at it is, it doesn't matter whether it's election year or not, you're supposed to get out. That's why I make the rounds to all my 13 towns as many times as I can. But still, we got to see which way he would like to go, because that also means which way the Department of Education wants to see things. That carries a lot of weight, and I think we're going to hear some of that coming up soon when they start giving their agency presentations, which way they would like to move it. They might just dump it in our lap and say, you figure it out. And then they can wash their hands of it, which I think is likely what they're going to do.
Thank you.
Senator Dr. Gordon, thank you very much for coming. I echo exactly what Bill was saying. It's interesting because even Channel 3, Scott Haney says the quiet corner and he says Putnam. So I don't think he likes me anymore because I called Thompson the true quiet corner. But I'm glad to hear that you have our voice at the state meetings. I did not know where you stood prior to this on the unfunded mandates, and that is one of the big issues. So I'm glad you are addressing that, and hopefully you make some positive strides with that. The other ones, obviously, us being an alliance district, you know, I made a joke before you were talking when you came in. Our funds are getting dry with alliance, and it's nice to know that that is part of the discussion, because we are one of your two, obviously, alliance districts. So we thank you for the money that has come to us. I know that you were not part of that originally.
I'll take credit for it.
Exactly. I hopefully we can continue to make those strides, because again, it's all part of that unfunded mandates, which comes back to an alliance district. And then obviously the other one is the special education. And I don't know if there's any way that we could get what Bill was saying, because if the funds follow the student, that takes care of a bulk of the issues. A few years back, we had one student come in, obviously, you can't budget for it. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you want to do right by the student, so you have to find the means to do it. And unfortunately, you get 70% reimbursement. When the dollars bill went from 76,000 was the criteria, I think. Now it's 92,000, which is on the town. And then the percentage dropped. So it was actually a double whammy. Level went up, percentage drop. So anything you can do on that would be a very beneficial.
It's a bizarre system.
Yeah.
It's just a strange system. I mean, the legislator is taking credit for the fact that, oh, yes, in special session, we upped all the tiers by 15%. So if you were at 70, you went up to 85, and the highest, I think, went from 76 to 91.
Yeah,
That's temporary. That was part of the emergency legislation that went through. That's fine. I didn't have a major problem with it, other than the fact that, and I spoke with some of the leadership in the other party, that's the majority party, that, well, what are you going to do beyond what we just did for right now? And there's no real thinking that long term, which to me doesn't make any sense. So I do agree there's a lot that needs to be looked into it. I really don't want to be passing a budget for 2 years and then just say, we'll figure the rest of it out in the next 2 years. I don't think that way. But unfortunately, that's how it's thought about up there, is only focusing on a 2-year block. But we'll see where that goes in appropriations. I have a list of questions, so they might get tired of me asking. So, and I do, the other is that I've made it very clear all last year when I was campaigning, I've made it clear, I've even said this on the Senate floor, that I'm not voting for tax increases and I'm not voting for unfunded mandates. Because I don't see any reason why I should. And again, as I said earlier, it's that big of a policy decision that the state wants, the state should pay for it, quite frankly. And there's actually a push just for the side to get some other non-education unfunded mandates that the state said it really wants to renew, get those into the budget. So we'll actually see if that happens. That would mean the town doesn't have to pay for it, the state pays for it. We'll see if that goes. But there is a push to try to get more into the budget. It means the budget's going to be bigger, but quite frankly, I think some of this will put a reality check on the state that, well, we don't want to pay for some of this, so maybe we'll stop mandating some of it.
Thank you.
Quite frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Definitely appreciate coming out here. And being fairly new to politics, being fairly new to the board. To whom does the State Board of Education answer? Does it answer to the legislature? Does it answer to the governor? It seems like they do what they want to do, and unfunded mandates is the result of that. And so I guess I'm asking you a question: is to whom do they answer?
Well, that is a good question. They answer to a certain degree to the legislature, because the legislature can step in and change whatever it wants to change by enacting a law. Can do that anytime the legislature wishes, for any reason. So anything that they do is dependent upon authorization from the legislature. Now, the legislature will authorize big things and then let the executive branch deal with all the details. Because we can't handle, we can't be constantly in session handling all that. However, they do answer to us in a certain degree. But a lot of it is up to the executive, how the executive wants to, move. So if the legislature says, we're not happy with certain things, then we just change the law. And can do that, at any time. That's our big stick that we have. So we can say, talk with us all you want, but if we don't agree with you, okay, then we'll change it. And then they have to abide by it. The problem though is a lot of these laws that get put in, if you read them, they're pages, and some of them are hundreds of pages long. And at the end of the day, most of those paragraphs just say, this is the big sky picture. Now we're just gonna let you figure it out. And that all flows through the executive branch and all of that. So the legislature gets a bit divorced from that.
Right, and I guess I did understand the mechanics of that.
Yeah, it's an
Um,
interesting mechanic.
Yeah, and the whole unfunded man, I'm pretty sure we're universally agreed with you on that, and I don't think that really would matter a party. Unfunded mandates, it's just kind of, I want to say defies logic. I mean, like you said, if it's important enough to do, it should be important enough to fund, because once it comes down to either a poor big city or a poor small town, the money's just not there, and so it's that important, somebody's got to pay for it.
Oh, I agree with it. I have a mug. I used it for years in town government in Woodstock. It says common sense. Now I brought it with me to the state. And I'm gonna at times put it on my desk in the Senate floor so people can see it.
Yep.
But it's very true. There's a lot that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But it's the way the system is.
For such a small, seems, we're here and Hartford's way down there, but it's still a very small state in comparison to lots of other states. And we seem to have an oversized bureaucracy for this little tiny state. And you get divorced from reality and logic. So appreciate your efforts there.
And just remember, the budget that the governor proposed for the next 2 years is $50.5 billion. That's what he's proposed. And already that's not anywhere near what a lot of legislators want. So it'll be interesting how many more billions get tacked on within reason. But if you're talking tens of billions of dollars, very much so. That's taxpayer money.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Yes, gentlemen. All right. So in figuring out or speaking to appropriations committee, could you use Thompson as an example? Because we have well above the average, our state average for special ed students. So we're at 23%. So we're well above the average and we're only getting 70%. So like we're already, I mean, just using those numbers in the appropriations bit, they're gonna look to see like, wow, it should be off needs based. It shouldn't be if you come from a bigger city, or it should be a tier of if you're at 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it might be, that's what you should be funded off of, is what you're actually dealing with for special ed versus how big of a town, or, and we need that voice to go through, because when you look at, we're only getting 70% back on a 23+% special ed rate in a small town. I mean, the math's right there, it's excruciating
It doesn't work.
to our budget, and it's not working, and it's not working at all. And we need to really have that put forth. And appropriations needs to look at their appropriations is way off. Their calculations are way off. So, and my other thing is we're an opportunity district. And when we got bumped down to that no special funding, right there, a mandated, unfunded mandate, we got bumped down to something and no support from the state. We got told that this is where you guys are at, but no guidance, no financial help, no tools to help us get out of that.
Well, we do get technical support from.
Technical support, but I
The
mean,
degree of support that you need.
right,
You don't get. Yes.
right,
And that's a
exactly.
big problem with the way it is. One thing to keep in mind is that, and I'm very aware of this, is the legislature is not an ideal world.
Yeah.
There's great public policy ideas. It's a political entity.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of hashing that goes on.
Yeah,
And that's why you see these bizarre ways of doing things in order to line up the votes, in order for people to be happy. But there's a growing number of folks, including out in the suburbs, who are looking to really rework the formula. So it's not skewed, just a lot of it's skewed for the big cities.
right.
So we'll see where that goes. Do I mention my towns? I do. And one of the things I want to do is just not run through my list, because we're supposed to, when we introduce ourselves in the legislation, we're supposed to say all the towns in the district, and so I have to zip through 13 towns real fast. But to just talk about what are some of the specifics going on in the town, so I can say, I can be here in Thompson, I can go down to Hampton, I can go all the way out to Stafford, to Vernon, and I can talk about different things that are going on. You know, and why it matters, because if I just talk about generalities, we all do. That's part of why these meetings take hours and hours, because we're all talking. But I want to be able to talk about some of the details and talk with the folks that matter, that are going to be helping make some of these decisions. So you may not see it during meetings, because we're hashing this out outside of meetings.
Right.
But that type of stuff, by all means, send it to me.
My other,
I may already have some of it, but I don't mind having more than I need, because the more details I have and the more specifics for each of my towns, the more I can bring that out and say, I'm just not talking,
Mhm.
but this is why I'm talking and why this is the reality on the ground. To be able to, to bring that out. So I'm happy to mention Thompson.
yeah, because that would be
So-
great, because just our numbers alone at 70% and return rate, and then you have 23% special ed. I mean, we're well above the state average. That should be how it's funded, is off of needs based.
Dr.
How-
Jones's presentation would be perfect.
Yeah, to send how, and then my other question is, how are towns making money off of special ed? So we're not even breaking the, like, we're not even close to breaking, like, even. And then you have towns making an extra 10%, like,
Those
Right.
are also the towns that are not taking the initiative like
Right.
Dr. Jones has and bringing programs in here
right.
to not only give students the free and appropriate education that they deserve in the least restrictive environment. Did I get the entire tagline right, Dr. Jones? But he's also doing it as, a break to our taxpayers, but we get penalized for that because it doesn't hit the
Well-
reimbursement threshold.
Right.
But you have other districts like Derby and other ones who have no problem sending those students out because they don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to take the initiative on giving those students that, so they just pay the bill and then they get reimbursed 1.5 times what they've actually spent.
Right, and then for me, again, goes back to appropriations, how are you appropriately dispersing your appropriations? And my other question was actually for the board. Anybody that sent stuff out to any of our House of Representatives hear back? I did not hear back from Mr. Hayes.
Me neither.
Okay.
Oh,
That
you
was
mean
all.
the state reps?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I heard back from your office and Flexer, but I did not hear back from.
And my office
Never.
tries to respond, one thing about a state senate is you have a lot of towns. You're
Mhm.
representing 100,000 people. That's why there's only 36 of us in the state senate. So I'm literally getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a day on everything. So we do cycle through it. But unlike a state rep, a state senator has dedicated staff people, one-on-one. So one of my staff people is my legislative aide and he only works with me. So he's very good. His name is Adrian. He's very, very good. So you may not hear that same day from me. But he does on my behalf, will respond or will look into things, flag things that I need to know about. Sometimes I'm the one responding. But we try to make certain that we are responding, so if for some reason you're not hearing. It could be because I'm spending a lot of time in committees and haven't been looking at my emails, but he's looking at them. So if you haven't heard, then by all means, let me know. But otherwise, we're trying to be as responsive as we can, and if there's any concerns, questions, requests, we can liaison with state government.
Yeah, we just haven't heard back from our House of
It's been
Representatives.
interesting, when I was a town official, before I got elected, I would try to liaison with a state agency, you get put on some list and you may hear months later. As a state senator, they seem to want to make me happy, because they want me to vote for their agency budget.
Yeah.
That's what they'd say. So fine, make me happy by answering the question or solving a problem.
Put some heat on Hayes.
Rick's a good friend.
Yeah.
I actually will see him tomorrow.
All right.
See-
Thompson needs them.
Yeah.
Question, has there been any discussion with the federal legislative partners for better implementing funding for IDEA, since that's never been fully funded appropriately? Has there been any discussion like with Courtney or any of our other federal representatives from state government to federal?
Reached out to Blumenthal and Murphy, have yet to hear back. I've reached out to Courtney and I have a meeting getting scheduled. It was one of the issues to discuss. I think he's actually one of my constituents. I think he lives in Vernon. As far as what we're being told from the state, we're being told, at least so far through appropriations, don't count on too much from the feds, but we'll see where that stands. It's one thing for the feds to give out extra money. It's another thing for the feds to give out the money that they've promised,
Right.
which is a different bucket of money as far as I'm concerned, because they've already authorized it. The issue is, what are they going to do to actually move it out? So, yes, and that's actually a discussion that I've had with some of the governor's staff about what's the governor doing. I know the governor last week was down in DC with the governor's meeting with the president. So I don't know what he discussed, but some of it is Connecticut's been promised a boatload of money, but the state hasn't fully seen it yet. So the issue is, when are the feds going to give it? So that can help, but right now it's a big question. I honestly don't know. I know it's going to come up for discussions in appropriation because we have to figure out what might the state get. So we can realistically plan what we're going to do with our state budget, but it's a big question mark right now.
Okay, so then just to kind of wrap, would it be best then for us to be requesting our parents and residents to be, I don't want to say inundating, but contacting our representatives with maybe a pre-formed letter in regards to the concerns for Alliance District funding and Opportunity District funding and special education funding, so that way that voice is louder, even if it's in email format?
Yes, most people send us stuff in email.
Okay.
One thing to be careful about a form letter is if we get a form letter and you don't put where you're from, I can tell you in the flagging priority system that most of
It
us
gets hidden
senators
somewhere.
do, it gets lower on the pile.
Okay.
Anything that's flagged as someone from the district. And I can tell you for me, it gets a red flag, which is the highest priority, so that I see it. Because we get tons of form emails and more so than just regular mail, but I don't have a problem with that because that shows that even if it's a form email, people are paying attention and this is something important to them. So if people send it, make certain they put, of course, who they are, because we get ones that are anonymous and I have no clue where they're coming from. But put the town.
We could do it, we could collate it from the communications committee.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you put the town saying, hey, I'm so and so and I'm from Thompson. I mean, it doesn't have to be my part of Thompson because I do the whole town, that I'm responsible for in a way. It gets flagged. And I know the other legislators do that too. Because if I get an email from someone who's way off in Greenwich asking me about something, and I get the same email from someone, let's say in Thompson, the one that gets flagged the most is the one that's in district, because we look at those very, very much so, because we get so many from even out of state. It's just amazing. People want to just tell us what they think about Connecticut, and they don't even live anywhere here, or even on this coast. I've gotten stuff from people in California saying how we should change our laws, and I'm like, okay, great. Thanks a lot, for that, but you're off in California. But
We'll send a donation.
yeah, they could, but in district, by all means, put your name and put your town. And that does catch our eye. And before I go to bed tonight, I have a whole bunch of them. I'm gonna go through my phone that have been red flagged because they're in district. I'm gonna read through them and some of them I'm gonna be responding to. If they haven't been responded to already, we pay attention to that. But if we don't hear, doesn't mean it's not important, but that just might mean it's not as important to people in the district, so we might not put it higher up on our list.
Okay.
As things to advocate for. Education is high on my list. It's one of the reasons I ran.
Funding education.
Again, it gets back to the state's responsibility.
Yes, at this time, I'm going to open comments to the audience and the Zoom audience. So anybody in the Zoom audience or, yes, state your name and address, please.
My name is Kaylee, 685 Fabian Road. before. Senator, I am a liaison for Board of Finance as well as being here tonight. And a email crossed my inbox a little while ago about a specific bill. I don't know if you know anything about it. It is to fund, I don't know how much more of special education, but it was from the state. The state would fund more of it. Do you happen to know anything? I don't remember the bill number. If I knew, you would have.
There's a lot of bills that are being coalesced into what we call committee bills. So I've had a bunch of bills, others have a bunch of bills. And for example, the education committee will say, well, instead of bringing 10 bills that are trying to do the same thing, they merge them all into one. It changes the number and it becomes a committee bill. It carries more weight when the committee does that. But hopefully it makes it through the committee and work its way up to get an eventual vote on the floor of the Senate, for example. So I don't know which numbers they are. Yes, there are a number of bills to look to see, unless you have a specific number, I'm happy to look into that one.
022.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I don't remember offhand which one that is. There's a,
On special
yeah,
education.
so there's a number of bills that are looking to see for special education to say, get rid of this crazy formula system, which I gotta be honest with you, is a crazy system that they have. I mean, it's taken me quite a number of note taking just to move through what the state's done every year with it. So part of the thinking with a bill like that is fund it 100%. Again, it gets back to if the state feels it's important, fund it. The flip side of that is you have a lot of people who are saying, great, where's that money coming from? Because others want money for other things. The way I look at it is that the state does not have a money problem, quite frankly. What the state has, it has a problem with how it's actually spending the money. And so what drives me nuts is if we have core responsibilities like education and the state's not funding what I think it should be doing, but it's putting the money for a lot of other things that I don't think is a core responsibility. I would like to see the state repurpose how it spends. If you have the extra money, it's similar to what happens in a town. You have core things that you have to do. Who else is going to do them? Like, you know, for education and, well, you know, if you have a police department, for example, or public works, you know, who else is going to do that? You have to fund these things. If you have extra money, like the state, then you have a wish list. What else might you want to spend it on? But the problem is everybody has their own wish list and is saying this is necessary to do. So a bill like that, the bill I put in was similar along those lines, but was more generic to really try to capture some other things. My bill has been taken up as part of an education committee bill. But something like that is trying to say just fund it all. That's a lot of money, but it's just trying to say get rid of these crazy formulas and just, you know, fund it all. Basically, that is something coming through appropriations. When we had, I don't know, well, I don't expect people to sit there for 24 hours like we do for these public hearings, but we had a joint education appropriations public hearing. We heard from a lot of people about that. So why are you coming up with these weird formulas? And then you just, in the blink of an eye, we just changed it last week. No public hearing, we just changed it evidently. It came up. So why can't we do that? Why can't we just say go to 100%? Quite frankly, to be honest with you, looking at the budget, the state has the money. It's just where it's going to move the money from. But it actually has the money, even within the Department of Education. So that's going to be an interesting bill to see what that dollar figure is going to be. But there is serious talk about something like that. So, but you know, again, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars and it adds up to billions and we have to crunch the numbers. But still, that actually is a serious bill. That idea is being taken up seriously.
As a taxpayer and student, I was curious, so thank you.
Yeah, that actually is not just, that actually is moving through the process. So we'll see where it ends up.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay. Anybody on Zoom have a question?
Kathleen,
Yes.
Who is it?
I'd like to speak.
Okay,
Oh,
Sean,
boy.
I recognize you. Go ahead.
Sean Brissett, Lowell Davis Road. In our town, and also thank you, Senator Gordon, for being here tonight. In our town this year, according to our business director, you know, you're talking about roughly $1,000 per average house being spent on special education. I don't think anybody's naive enough to think that the state can take over funding it without obviously finding the revenue somewhere. But personally, I would rather spend an extra 10, 20, 30 cents a gallon every time I fill up my car than have the uncertainty of 8 kids moving into town over the summer, and all of a sudden the Board of Education is accused of neglecting a track for 20 years, can't fund regular education properly because of the basic vitality of special education. And I think every small town across the state would feel the same way. When you have a pool of money sitting up over the state and kids are moving within the state, there's no effect at all. If you have a kid that moves in a border town from Massachusetts or Rhode Island, and even if they're a heavy hitter at 100 grand, that's really not going to affect a big pool of money over the state, but it devastates these small towns. And we face this every single year where the budget gets frozen by October. I had a parent the other day just tell me their kid hasn't been on a field trip in like 6 years because discretionary spending gets frozen every single year in October. And it's always because of special education. We need to educate. We need to have this special education. But again, if that pool of money was up top following the kid, it would be a far more efficient system. And I understand you have to find the money, but I don't think anybody would mind a tax somewhere that it isn't that $1,000 a year. And again, that's just the average house. Also, if you put it on something like a gas tax, now you have people that don't even live in the state of Connecticut helping fund our special education because they're getting gas as they drive through. You have people who may not be paying much property tax in the state. They're a renter, let's say. Now they're helping fund it. So I think it's going back to the way it was, whatever it was now, 15, 18 years ago when the state fully funded it is clearly the way to go. It will, I think, stabilize the small town budgets. So I hope it's something that's seriously considered.
And again, those being, looked at, just one thing to keep in mind is we have a constitutional amendment regarding transportation funding, the lockbox. So money that does come in through the gas tax has a certain way it's supposed to go. But again, I think the state does have money. It's just, again, how do you deal with, every legislator has a wish list. So it adds up, for, how this money gets spent. But again, this is going to be a year, I'm hoping something will move. There seems to be a big effort, very much so, with education committees and appropriations committees. We'll see where that process goes. There's still a lot of months left.
Okay, well, I hope it goes, these small towns, we're hurting very badly with this education cost. And it's crippling our general education here at Thompson. It really is hurting us. We cannot sustain it much longer. And all I can say is if it were spread over the whole state evenly, everybody from the state contributed, like healthcare, the state healthcare insurance, it would sure make these small rural towns a lot easier to bear for our budgets. We seem to be the forgotten corner. We don't have the resources here. We don't have the health services here. We don't have the mental health services here. When I was raising my child who had not special needs so much, but behavioral issues, I would have to go to Willimantic. And for a while there, we had to go to Norwich and still do for a lot of our car, registration and things for our cars. We have to go for a lot of medical services. We have to go to the larger hospitals and they're an hour and a half away. We almost lost our small rural hospital. Anything north of Hartford. We're hurting for services here. I mean, we do have doctors and we're lucky we made, we were able. Day Kimball was able to work out a deal to stay in business, if you will. It's difficult for us in this little northeastern corner, as you know.
I know very well. Yes, I do. And
Um,
there are a number of things I do speak to it, especially in public health committee. As far as where
and
it's
trying
the
to fund
resources.
special education on just property taxes with no business. I mean, Putnam's very lucky, I guess, but we cannot sustain this any longer. And May Flexer's bill 6022 is what I wrote you on, to fully fund special education and get it off of our town's property taxes. Like we have less, when I first joined the board, it was 4% or something. Now it's gone down. We've lost industry because we are an alliance district. And if you wanted to buy a home in Thompson, you're really not going to. You're going to go to someplace like Woodstock, who has better school systems and
Yes.
Better school system.
well, they have
No offense, but yeah.
problems, yes, they do. They have an academy who can freely raise whatever they want to raise the tuition to. We don't have that problem here. But you may not, housing prices are higher in Woodstock also. The average home is higher. Here in Thompson, you can buy a house cheaper. Anyway,
Well, I do have, I'm glad that a number of my bills on education, including special education, were not ignored. They're just moved into committee bills, which is good,
yes,
because that means the committees are listening. And so I'm fine not to have my name on the committee bill,
Mhm.
but still one of my bills contributed to it when it comes to special education, for example. So if you can see, a lot of us legislators submitted bills about special education.
Mhm.
So I think that's adding to the momentum to try to do something about it. Quite frankly, I think the state can afford to spend more money on it. It has the money. It's just are there votes to do that?
okay,
And
well.
that's what it's gonna come down to.
We
Is how many
have to
votes
have-
are there gonna
We
be?
have to get the votes, so I guess we have to write to it because this school could be a great school, but we need the resources, we need the funding. We need to take that elephant off our backs. We have programs in place. But if we can't fund them,
No, I understand. One of the reasons I wanted to come here.
and
tonight-
we've got dedicated staff, we've got dedicated teachers who give all they can give. We've got dedicated admin who have worked hours and hours and days to put these programs together to help our children achieve what they need to achieve. But if we can't fund it, then it just isn't going to go anywhere, and we're going to stay in this quagmire.
No, I understand, and I'm one of the ones speaking
Okay,
No.
and we thank you very
as
much
much
for
as we
that.
can, and I can tell you through the rural caucus, and I'm one of the chairs, this is an issue important for us as well.
Oh, I'm
That's
sure it is. I'm
Big
sure we're not the
legislature.
only town in this situation.
Now, basically, every town is to different degrees, and I hate to say to pit towns and versus cities. The cities get their lion's share, but they do.
Mhm.
It's really more making it more fair for the towns. And that's what I've been advocating for.
And I'm sure the cities have way different problems, big
Yeah.
problems, the different problems.
They have a lot of problems you don't want to have,
No, I'm sure, but we need help too.
and I understand that, and that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Thank you.
And we
so
thank you
much.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Then.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night. I'm gonna.
Okay,
get to
thank
those
you so
emails.
much.
Yeah. But have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask that we move up the CAPS recognition. The students here have been so patient.
And the spelling bee.
And the spelling bee, okay, we're gonna move that up and, to be next. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Go for it.
Okay, so first we'll do the CAPS recognition.
Oh, no, first the spelling bee.
Oh, the spelling bee.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the spelling bee first. Okay, sorry.
Lily's been waiting and she is so.
I was there, Lily, and you did a fantastic job.
You spell Fed time. You
Okay,
don't have.
the Achievement Award. This award is presented to Lily Kimball for outstanding achievement in advancing to the Connecticut Spelling Bees. So you're gonna go to state, huh? Are you memorizing the dictionary?
What was the word you won on? What was it?
Purchase.
Purchase. Oh, that's a good word. That's a hard word.
In your family, and we'll take a picture with the board chair. You've been waiting so patiently.
Congratulations, Lily. That's awesome. We're gonna-
There you go. Good job. Thank you so much. Thank you. Congratulations.
When is, when is the next competition?
March 5th, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
March
March
5th.
5th.
Good luck.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
luck.
Thanks for waiting. Do us proud, Lily.
And I think we only have one CAPS student here, but we can name them all.
Okay.
The superintendent recognition.
This is one that's here.
Haley is here.
Okay. And let's start with her. Okay. Haley.
Danielle.
I'm not too sure either.
Balargian.
Balargian, okay. This award is presented to Haley Balargian for outstanding achievement in receiving the 2022-2023 Superintendent's Award. Haley? Congratulations.
Speech.
Yeah.
Haley joining us in Killingly for our regional recognition for that award. So I'm very excited that you'll be joining us, Haley.
There you go. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And the other recipients of the award are Ethan Kayer, Grace Roy, Mabel Perot, and Ashley Boudreau.
And one more.
Oh, Corey
Koskalopoulos.
Kostakopoulos. You could pronounce that, right? Tom. Hey.
I'm, go ahead.
So there are 2 students awarded from each school. That makes 6 that will be going to Killingly next month. So
Okay,
we'll be sure to get these to them on behalf of the board.
that being done, we're gonna move on to the approval of minutes.
Kathleen,
Yes,
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 17th, and 30th.
okay,
I will second that.
all right. I have a motion. You have a second? Matt seconds it. Okay, any discussion on these minutes? No, hearing none. put the motion to the floor for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Any opposition, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Unanimous. Okay, subcommittee updates. We had a communications, no, we're all set then.
Next.
All right. The enrollment update.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Enrollment at Marriott Fisher Elementary School is 385 students. We're down 3 students from last month. At the middle school, we are at 283 students. We're down 2 students from last month. And at Turtle Lot Memorial High School, we are at 216. We are down 4 students. We registered 2 students and we withdrew 11 students, and the details of that are in Danette Sene's report. Many students moving, and it is a transient population, and we're seeing big fluctuations this past month. We're not really sure why. And Dr. Jones will speak on the out of district numbers. We see some positive movement in that area. And then the last thing under my report is that I would like to welcome Trish 25 to talk about the cereal challenge that's happening in the district.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the cereal challenge. Do we have the video?
Heather's gonna pull that up for you.
Okay. I think they say that picture's worth 1,000 words. I think this video is worth them. So we'll save me some talking after it's better tonight.
So beautiful, and I've only got 130 remaining. And Katie already showed you how to use them. So you already know what to do, so I'm just gonna have her show you a couple of her designs. Yeah. With them. I did do it on this necklace here too, which is kind of a different type of design, but you can also straight.
Okay, so that was 1,358 boxes that fell in South Carolina Elementary School. We are going to try to attempt a similar simulation after we collect cereal for teague. So the district started, as it was read in the report from the Board of Liaisons, we started a teague food drive with cereal as our captive audience for all schools to participate at the same time. So it's our Thompson Public Schools Cereal Challenge. In case you didn't know, National Cereal Day is March 7th. So on March 7th, we are planning to try to have this happen all the way from high school through middle schools and down to elementary school. So if you can just envision our boxes falling. We will be true teachers and do it with backwards design. So we're going to start to build from elementary school backwards, and the number of boxes that we receive will determine how far back we get through the district. The goal is that every single student is given the opportunity to witness it, every single staff member, as well as to contribute to it. So there is a spreadsheet that we're keeping track of all the boxes donated. As of 4 o'clock today, we're at 209. I think there are more boxes in the district than have been reported on the spreadsheet because teachers are busy during the day and not always updating. But confirmed right now is 209. Our goal is between 1,200 and 1,500 boxes. My marketing students and my junior achievement students are helping to host this event. It's not just myself. There was a committee. It dates back to last spring when a former Board of Ed member approached Melinda about it. And a committee has been formed since the fall to have this happen. So we will be similar in videotaping and following through the district. we have hit the pavement, and as my kids think now that I fell over the weekend, they don't realize the saying hit the pavement. So we have gone after the big businesses in the towns around us. So we've gone to the Walmarts, the Targets, the Stop and Shops, the Dollar General, the Aldi's, the list goes on, from the smaller supermarket to Dudley's Park and Shop. So we are trying to get the community involved. We've reached out to the local business associations, so Thompson, Woodstocks, Putnam, Killingly, and Pomfrets, to see if the local businesses can support us as well, since those communities receive the cereal. We realize not everybody's going to be able to donate, that some of them will be on the receiving end as part of our school population. But whatever we can get, there's a little competition between Renato and the Mayo. So right now, I will let you know.
Who's in the lead right now?
Mary R. Fisher has 83, middle school has 50, and high school has 63. There are other collection sites. We've gone out to transportation, cafeteria, maintenance. We've asked all of the supervisors to keep track and to collect there as well. So our goal again is between 1,200 and 1,500. One of my students wanted us to set 2,500. If we get there, that would be amazing. We'll be able to do all kinds of courses. We've had students that have taken Deb's wheel, mapped out the various courses, so we know how many feet. But I think the biggest part of our success that's not part of what the video did is taking all of our students, once the boxes fall, because we're all going to be out in the hallway to watch it. They're going to go out with their hats and coats, and we're going to form a human chain going up through the parking lot, Mary R. Fisher, and handing them from pre-K through 12th grade students to deliver the boxes up there. So we're not loading vehicles. We're going to make that change so that there's a full connection from donation, watching the dominoes, and then being able to contribute and bring them up the hill to actually store them in tea for distribution. So that is what the cereal challenge is. And if you've seen posters around, you've seen us on social media, it's on our school website. We're in the works of trying to get the big news stations to carry us, the newspaper to carry us. We were on Winnie last week. I had 4 students with me. So that is the goal, is to help. It's going to take a village to help feed the hungry in our villages around us. So that is what we're doing. It's an authentic learning for my students. They will be part of the filming. We're looking to have it filmed professionally as well, just to make sure. We'll upload it to YouTube, and we will recognize any of the local businesses that are able to help us out.
Great.
Are there questions? Yes.
You said that film was done in South Carolina.
I
Have
believe
you-
in elementary.
Have you heard of other places do it? I think it's a fantastic idea from start to finish, the whole course and the human chain.
That's why I think it's
It's
was
phenomenal.
important to see the video.
Yes,
Versus me just trying to say we're going to set up.
Phenomenal. It's not a,
There are supposedly other
phenomenon, right?
schools that have done it, but nothing here in this area.
okay, so
I
yeah.
think that anything's been done in Connecticut itself. That's where we're hoping the Channel 3s, the
Right, that's right,
30s
yeah.
are going to maybe do 2 stories, the before and after, or at least incorporate, come and interview the kids that are involved. But it's a total authentic learning. Part of our POG is collaboration. And even though this came across my inbox from Melinda saying, can we do this? And my group has already done their collaborative group. I said, sure, we can do it. I just see it district wide. I just didn't want it to be high school only. I think having an initiative that brings all 3 schools under one community service project will be phenomenal. And they'll
Absolutely.
remember it. They'll remember going out and watching the boxes fall. So fingers crossed that it's a good weather day so that we can pass them up the hill and get them there. We're looking to try to get some of the bigger companies to donate as well. So Price Chopper has been kind enough to have one of their managers reach out for us for the big vendors. So if we can get a post, General Mills. So we're trying, and my students are learning an awful lot about networking and not being afraid to approach adults, making phone calls, going to businesses, writing emails, being part of team players, getting thermometers up in the different schools to mark where we're at, keeping the running totals. They're using Google Classroom, Google Sheets. So there's a lot of hands-on stuff.
Awesome.
Hopefully we're successful, and I'm back in March. Anybody that would like to attend on March 7th and watch the dominoes effect, we're hoping to do it somewhere between 9 and 9:30. It's going to take a lot of people to bring the boxes from the classrooms where they're being gathered, lining them up, but we have stations that are being set up. Like I said, as the boxes come in, we know how many feet backwards we can go. So if you'd like to donate, there are boxes in all of the offices across there. You can donate to Mrs. Tupai's homeroom so that the software class up in high school. They take donations if anybody knows of a business that's willing to collect. Cash donations are also being accepted. Checks are preferable. Since we talked about check writing earlier, and just on the memo line, put serial challenge. We'll cash the checks and I will go and purchase. I've already done some purchases that people have done monetary contributions. So we will make it happen and we will help feed the local community.
Trish, I want to thank you so much for putting that together. It is a huge undertaking. Thank you to the principals who have been meeting with Trish since last year, but your students seem pretty enthused, and I don't know how the boxes are going to go down the stairs, but that will be something to watch.
That's where we're starting it. So we're definitely going to include the stairs because it's going to end in the foyer so that we can bring them up from elementary school. So we're hoping.
There's
So
domino experts that know all about that. kind of
we
stuff.
will be practicing as we get closer into completion. So we have practiced, we figure a box every foot. It's our goal. So 1,200 to 1,500 feet. If we have much more, then we're gonna have courses going all over the place through gyms, whatever the case may be. So I have Eric in charge of the different opportunities going forward. So, and it's not just myself, there was a committee, T's been involved, other staff members have been involved. So I'm just the guest speaker tonight. So not sure we'll make it an annual event, so don't hold me to that. But I'm just saying that it's been a great learning project for my students all along. My marketing kids do a project where they design a cereal box of their own flavor in the fall. So it just all fit in when I was approached to be a part of the team to make this happen. So it's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While I have your attention, come on, Bill up here. My collaborative group is Midnight Madness, so I want to invite you to attend if you want. That is Friday, March 10th. It's 6 to 12 o'clock. We are not spending the night overnight anymore like we used to in the old days, but we will have things. The big hit of the night will be the hypnotist starting at 9:30, and everybody's going to attend the show. We're also coordinating an anti-venom part of this, so we'll be having somebody here March 8th in the high school for families and children and their parents to discuss the importance of not vaping. So it's too cold for that particular group, but it'll happen before your next Board of Ed meeting. So I just want to put the invitation out there for those events as well. So hopefully we'll see you on March 7th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the administrative reports, and I'll start with Dr. Mayo.
Make mine quick. Obviously, Christian is being humble. Many things, but it's really, it's great, Trish. My job is usually to carry away during the meeting. Chris is all the head. Outside of that, I want to thank those board members and their families that came to the mystery dinner there. I thought it was a really nice event. The nice way to raise some money to offset the cost of Mary Poppins, which I know the kids are hoping that Taylor's gonna stay because she is Mary Poppins. But you know, that event is gonna be really nice. You know, and I think that the last thing that I would say is community service, which started off slowly, is really doing extremely well in the high school for freshmen and sophomores. You may have seen a high number of them out at the Iron Ice this weekend volunteering. They've been all over the place, including, I believe, some of them might be coming to work the Board of Finance meeting this week to help out with babysitting or whatever, things like that. So it's something that started out a little slowly, has kind of really gained a lot of momentum in the last month. And I've seen a lot more of my freshmen and sophomores really get involved in it. So it's been kind of a really nice thing to see. Donate cereal to Trish. I told her for however long this meeting went, that we're donating a box for me. Thank you. Tight budget, yeah.
Taxes went up.
Kim.
All right, well, we love the competition, so the school will be winning this cereal challenge. Let's see. All right, so January 13th, we had our big celebration
Over 200 kids attended. Kids had a blast. They were able to participate. We had dancing, we had crafts, painting of the nails, and a big shout out to the faculty and staff who showed up and volunteered their time. So very much appreciative of that. Congrats to the University of Florida for winning the January PBIS. One highlight this month in January and February, we are stopped up in a meeting every day, which has been, book in hand. So again, great shout out to all the students and the staff. Everyone stops. It's kind of a nice, peaceful piece of our day. Another big highlight is over 106 kids made the honor roll, and we celebrated last Friday. Big shout out to the cafeteria faculty, cafeteria staff for creating the goodies for that event. We had a nice big cake, but with some fruit. And and that's it on the middle school.
Okay, thank you. Larry Prentice.
Hi, folks. Second, third, and fourth graders recently participated in the NEWA testing. This information does provide the teachers with some important indicators of academic progress. The attendance team continues to meet regularly. The elementary school is making a very concerted effort to make sure kids are attending as much as possible. Huge connection between academic progress and attendance. Betty Osga visited last month, accompanied several administrators. We went to probably 15 classrooms. Great opportunity for us to see different teachers in action and to observe the curriculum implementation. Of course, thank you to the PTO for providing the elementary school with the opportunity to see Manny Noguera, who is a professional BMX rider. Kids had a great time. Thanks once again to the PTO. We also had a hat day and a popcorn day last month. PBIS team is doing just a great job in the elementary school, and that's just about it. Of course, thank you again to Trish Tupai for all of her efforts for the cereal challenge, and thank you very much. That's it for the elementary.
Dr. Chris Jones.
Good evening. As Superintendent Smith stated, our current student population is 884, of which 212 are currently under special education. So with that being said, we are currently at 23.92%. And just to put it out there, at the last meeting that I was at when I was going over the budget, someone had said the state average was 12.3%. That was not accurate. It's actually 16.3%. Yes, we are still higher than the state average, but again, state average is 16.3. We're at 23.9%. Out of district, last month we were at 27. It did say that there'd be some change in that from last month. Happy to report that we're currently at 24. So we're down 3 with the out of district. And of the 24, 13 of those students are in the Bradley School Wyndham County program on site. We're still partnering with 3 other neighboring districts. We're still holding firm with 7 transportation vehicles for those students that are not in the Bradley program. The excess cost, all of the contracts have been signed. The IDEA grant will be opening shortly. So section 611 for special education and 619 for preschool will be opening. Most of that grant is utilized for salaries. And then just to note, we have a few open positions. Mrs. Giamarinaro may want to speak to that, but we're still looking for some paraprofessionals and also a speech and language pathologist.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Steglitz.
Our revised budget, $19.8 million, year-to-date spending is at 11.2 million, 57% of the budget, a little ahead of where we were in the prior year at 53%. Year-to-date encumbrances are at 8.4, 43% of the budget compared to 45% last year. Total projected spending at the moment, 19.6 million, which is 99% of the budget. We were at 98% last year. Once again, as I say every meeting, this is before special ed excess cost. I actually have, I've reached out to the state, because we're actually due for our first, payment in February. I've reached out to the state to get a better idea on the timing of that. I haven't heard back from them yet. The pupil services is the only department currently in a deficit. However, that deficit held, flat with our last report, at around 1.2 million. Same drivers as we've discussed in the past, tuition at 462,000 over budget. Contracted pupil services at 329,000 over budget, and transportation projected to be 280,000 over budget. I also included the cafeteria report. Cafeteria continues to do well, approximately break even, once again before health benefits. And funding for free lunch has been extended, and Linda, forgive me, but I forget how long it was extended for.
Well, what's on the table is till the end of the school year.
Which obviously would go a long way in keeping us whole there.
I have a question, if you don't mind. I went through and, the question was, if you add up our overages in pupil services, it comes to 1.1 million, say. And how do you make up that much?
Right.
So I went through and saw all the accounts that we have favorable variances in. And one of them is the non-certified pension. We're not funding that.
No, the non-certified pension payment actually just occurred. This report was as of, I think it's dated 2/6.
Okay,
If I remember correctly, I actually just spoke to Melinda about this today.
okay.
So that budget it's right on the money. So
Oh, I see. So we had a favorable variance of 126. So now I take the 125 around off of that and we're essentially flat.
Right, we're close to flat at this point. If that report had been run, that payment can typically be made anytime from February to June.
Okay,
We've historically done it in February, and there was really no reason to
Okay,
not
so
do so.
we did. fund.
So the reason it's not in there is simply a matter of timing.
Okay. So we don't encumber that?
No, we actually could, and that's something that I actually made a note of. Because
Okay.
we know, matter of fact, I spoke to the actuaries today,
Mhm.
and we know what the contribution is for next year.
So we will
Which is
encumber it.
approximately $105,000, which kudos to our board, is exactly what we budgeted for next year.
Okay. So we have 105 in the budget, we'll put
For next year,
for next year and we will encumber that.
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Bill Birch.
So as Kathleen mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. 3 referendums passed, which was a big project on our plate. Track project is due to hit the street Wednesday, out to bid. The goal for that is that it's going to be finished by the end of the summer, and we hope that all holds true. We get favorable bids. The security project, oddly enough, the day after the referendum, the governor announced $15 million in security grant money. As is the state's new mode of operation, they put a very tight timeline, so we have to have that grant ready to go and submitted by March 31st. We've already started that work. We've started to do some of the paperwork. The contract should be in for the architects by the end of the week and back out, and they have told us that they think that they'll be able to get it done in time so that we can submit to that for that grant. If we're successful, the reimbursement rate on that one this round is 68.5%, which would come back to the town that they didn't expect. As far as the HVAC grant, the state is still very tight-lipped. Nobody has heard anything yet, but as Senator Gordon said, appropriations and education are working together, so maybe they're gonna find the money to fund all of these things. Only time will tell. Beyond that, the weather's been pretty good to us. So our oil consumption is down. The equipment has all been running as expected, with the exception of last weekend, which was a bit of an anomaly. But compared to many other places, I think we did pretty well. We did have one classroom that had a heating equipment that froze up. Some of that equipment that, as they so aptly put, is at or beyond its useful life. So we had some substantial water damage in one classroom. And a little minor damage to the classrooms on either side of it. At this point, the floor has been replaced. The ceiling is going back in. Pots are not available for the heating equipment, so we executed repairs in-house. We raised up 6 leaks in a heating coil. We put it back in service. We had a couple of trees that came down. One blocked the driveway, another one on the hill. Subsequent to the cleanup, a log got away and took out the fence at the top of the hill. So we're now waiting for the insurance adjuster to come in. We should have a claim into the insurance for, all but the deductible. We had a outside faucet line that froze. That was really not even worth mentioning, to tell you the truth. It was just a little bit of water damage. But compared to many other districts, we did pretty well to get through that. That was unprecedented cold. It was, when I got up here Saturday morning, it was 9 below zero and the wind had been blowing at 30-40 miles an hour all night. So I consider it a success. And that's really all I got.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill, if you need any assistance with the insurance adjuster, let me know.
We will.
Heather?
So quickly, we're still working, uploading data to Power School. The Safety Shield app is rolled out to staff this week. We'll be doing some testing and some training later this week as well as next week, to get that working. We did kick off esports preseason last week. Danette is gathering data for the mid-year discipline state report to submit in a couple weeks. And I just finished accepting bids for my E-rate grant for next year, which will be used to improve Wi-Fi in the elementary school.
Okay, thank you. Michelle Giamaro.
Got it. So quick move to open jobs. We have 3 open para jobs currently. We did fill 2 in the month of January, and we have the speech and language pathologist, which will be a slightly tougher position to fill. Larry and I are starting the hiring process for a new secretary in Mary R. Fisher. We do have a retirement coming from there, so we're planning on interviews for week 1, March. Looking forward to spring. We're going to be cascading and executing the performance evaluations for non-certified staff. We do have our health fair that we're continuing to work on, and we're starting to do prep work for summer hiring if there's going to be any or little or some or a lot. And then it's late this month because I have a lot of confidential things coming by my office that I can't tell you guys about. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Shannon, Laura, do you have anything for us?
I don't have anything new. I don't know if anybody had any questions. We're kind of status quo right now, which
Okay,
is good.
Good.
What's the biggie right now? Is it still flu or is it just strep? I mean, is it running the gamut?
Stomach right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little bit of COVID around. It's not crazy.
Major numbers. of,
Trickles
like,
in.
What was it? I mean, it was like mass numbers that were out weeks back, a week.
That was before Christmas.
Right, so we still,
No, we're good from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, attendance has been much better.
what,
Yeah, should have prefaced it by saying that.
Well, that's good to hear. Things are turning around in the right direction. Okay. Ms. Benelli.
Okay. Well, we're finishing up the winter season. The middle school boys play in the semifinals for the PGC championship tomorrow evening at Canterbury. Our girls finished their regular season at the high school this evening with a win. And they do make the ECC tournament, so they're playing the playing round on Wednesday. The boys have their last home game tomorrow, no, their senior game tomorrow. That's their last home game. They have a couple more on it. And they will also be participating in the ECC tournament, which is plans next Wednesday. And let's see what else. We have spring registrations open currently for spring sports. I'm looking for a middle school softball coach, so if you have anybody out there in mind, send them my way. We have a bowling team. We have club collaboration. Trish took her group FBLA to do a bowling thing, and then it happens to be that following Monday, the state's running a bowling tournament, one day kind of thing for kids, if we were interested in sending them, right? So we took the best 5 kids that went to her and we asked them if they wanted to participate. So Justin Tennant's gonna be the coach, and he's bringing them to Newington, Olarama, on March 4th. So we have a bowling team going to Bolorama on March 4th, to participate in their, I think it's the 3rd year they run it.
What's that movie? Big's about.
That's it.
Deb, do you want to talk about boys baseball?
Boys baseball, we pulled the plug on because we don't have enough numbers. We had, after going through the lunchrooms multiple times, and Alex being down there every day looking for people, and I had a couple of meetings in the gym. We had 9 kids that showed up. Of the 9 kids, I'd say half of them were ineligible. And then the others that were listed, a few of them, I checked their grades to see where we stood by the end of March or the middle of March, and it was debatable if we were gonna have those also. So due to numbers, we are not running the high school baseball team this spring. Our numbers for softball are a little sketchy for the high school right now also. Track's pretty good. Good thing.
Thank you.
So is this the first year we've ever had a bowling team?
Yes, it's only a 1-day thing.
I know, but still, that's.
Yeah. They think they're winning.
Hey, that's okay.
No one's positive. And this is the first time we've ever canceled varsity baseball.
Well, last year, don't forget, last year our team consisted of 13 seniors, and we had 3 younger classmen in the bench area, so we knew we were gonna have difficulty fielding a team anyway.
We can't get any, what do you call that, riders or whatever it is.
Co-op?
No, not even co-op. We had talked about 8th grade or something.
8th grade cannot participate in high school.
Yeah, okay.
And co-op, I already got a hold of Putnam's at 7 to 20 kids, the magic number is 14 or below. So kids that we have that would be interested are not eligible to play there as a co-op. Because we don't have them, they have too many, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I mean,
How are the numbers for middle school?
I don't know yet, they're still registered.
There's stuff, okay,
Right now, they're pretty light.
okay.
So there
Peyton's
goes-
wondering,
Well,
because,
for softball, I just talked to she's up in the gym.
yeah,
I think they're at 5 right now.
all right. Oh, there's always track.
Okay, is there any old business that we need to do?
It's been a while since we've seen a bullying report, like for that reporting purposes, just to see what's coming in on those.
Have that added to the next agenda, please. All right, new business. There's an item that we need to add to the agenda. Creations Church has asked to use our school auditorium for Easter Sunday from 9 to noon. They want to combine their 2 church services into one. And they will pay for all the
that auditorium or that auditorium?
The high school, I mean Thompson Public School Auditorium, yes.
Yeah. And they will pay for all the expenses associated with that, security, janitorial services, the normal fee for rental.
19.8 million.
Pardon me?
19.8 million.
I don't think so.
But we had Bill Birch and Greg ask their people if they have people that would work, and we need our AV guy there. And they all, people would step up and work if we grant it. This has never come across my desk before, that a church has asked to use the facility. So I don't know if it needs a vote or just a discussion, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I didn't want to open it up for services without having the board weigh in on it.
If they're gonna pay the fee, and it's not like we would, if anybody else was gonna come in and pay the fee to use it, then I don't see the issue with it.
I don't see an issue with it. They're gonna pay the same fee as anybody else pays.
Who's not endorsing?
Right, we're
No.
not,
And this is where it's that fine line. It's still a community building, let's just say, or town owned.
Right.
As long as we don't have an obligation that day, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
It's honestly good to see it's being used and making essentially some money, you know.
We're not,
something
yeah,
that we
we're not
never-
endorsing them.
Yeah.
We're not.
Have them light a candle and say a prayer that our budget.
More power to them. I mean, you know.
Okay,
Just back there raising the hand.
Deb has a question.
Debbie had a question.
I was just worried about Sundays. If we have our own activity.
On Easter
On Easter
Sunday?
Sunday?
Oh, it's just Easter Sunday. I know somebody said multiple Sundays.
No, just Easter Sunday.
yeah, we were just saying.
It's a one-off for them because they usually have two services and they really want to combine it into one service for Easter Sunday.
No. Like budget year.
I kind of would like to put it to, do we need to put it to motion? But I think we kind of should, maybe. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we open it up and we give the approval to the Creations Church to have their service on
Right.
Easter Sunday.
I'll second it. Okay, all in favor? Any opposition? Nay, say nay. Motion passes.
Is there any special accounting on that or how does that?
No, Danielle will take care of all of that,
Yeah.
like any other rental.
Yeah, even though it comes from a nonprofit, there's no red tape or anything.
Oh, just give us the check and we'll be good.
In advance. Okay. Go back to the roof project, the status of the roof project.
The roof project's complete,
Yep,
but in order to submit for the reimbursement, one of the boxes that has to be checked off is that the Board of Education has to accept the project as complete, so you need a motion and to pass that.
okay.
Question,
And we have to take your word for it that it's complete?
It's complete. Bills are paid.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a
Just-
motion,
just-
but you need a motion
Yeah.
before you can discuss anyway, so
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Ed accepts the roof project as complete.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
question. So in attending the last couple of basketball games, there was some significant water damage, especially to the ceiling tiles by the bathrooms. Was that related to the roof project and has that
No,
since been
it-
taken care of? Because I haven't been up there
No.
since last week.
So it has been taken care of.
Okay,
It was not related to the roof project.
okay,
It was not the new roof.
all right. I just wanted to clarify.
Any other
That's
discussion on
the
the
question there.
roof project? No? Okay. All right,
We have to vote.
the motion is that we accept the roof project as complete. Put that motion to the floor for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Any correspondence? I received a thank you card from the Mystery Murder Theater for providing them with their dinner. That's the only correspondence that I have. Now I'll open the floor again to citizens' comments.
I just have a comment or question.
No citizens' comments?
I just have one.
Okay.
It was actually about the block scheduling that one of the students had mentioned.
Mhm.
Will they be losing their I think. I'm like, it's 9:30, this is my, it's pretty programming on, so.
Study halls have not been included in schools for a long
Okay.
time. We've hung on to it.
Yeah.
But moving over to the block schedule, which will be more beneficial for our career pathways. And for some of our lab sciences in particular. They will lose that, but the teachers are getting some professional development for a full day on March 17th. And I am sure that is going to be discussed on how students can get some of their work done within that period.
So that was my question, is like, will work time be built into the block?
And I ran first a little bit, we came back to January.
Yeah,
That was Scott, and how it's broken out.
okay.
So then we'll just have a block.
Bailey's mentioned it a little bit, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Any other questions from the discussion from the board?
I'd like to put on the agenda next month, reconsideration for the graduation date.
Can I make a comment to that?
Yeah.
So this, we're talking about 2024,
Right.
and not 2023.
Mhm.
And yes, this year's been an anomaly,
Mhm.
but in the past, there was 3 or 4, maybe longer years. That
Mhm.
a group came to us and asked us to change the date, whether it was Project Graduation or Ellis or Killingly. Or there was one family that had multiples in different schools,
Right.
and we always changed it. And we were getting a little tired of changing it. So the board made a decision, and at the time I was against it because I was concerned about the teachers. But the board as a whole made that decision to set that date. And I went along with it. And I think we should stick with it, because now what are we doing? We're changing it again for somebody else who doesn't like it. We need to kind of stick to our guns. And next year in 2024, we don't know if we're gonna have 1 snow day or 25 snow days. We don't know. And that's why we set a date.
Can I speak on behalf of that?
Yes, you may.
So there's a solution. The solution would be to push the start of school up to the 31st of August. And therefore, that would bump up the days to graduation. So we're gonna push everything 5 days up. That would mean you would need to have this, voted in, the change voted in. Just for FYI purposes. Killingly's graduation is June 14th next year, which is the same day as ours. If we stick to the 14th, the second Friday. I don't think they care whether or not we have our graduation date set then or not. Woodstock Academies is June 8th, so that's not gonna bother us. And Ellis still hasn't set their calendar yet for that date. But to rectify this, the only thing we could do is push up the start of school, so the first day would be Thursday, 31st, push it up 5 days. It's okay, in August to push it up. Pushing it further into June, we're gonna get the heat on either end. You're either gonna take it in August or you're gonna take it in June, but we are gonna have hot days. So that's a way to solve, if we're gonna stick to the 14th, then that's the way to solve it.
But we don't need to even do that. We can leave it the way it is.
I think the
We,
struggle
with,
is,
and that has days built into it.
we've set a tradition that we are going to have our graduation on the second Friday of June. We set a tradition. Whereas Woodstock set their tradition on a Sunday. They have, I don't know why they changed it. They changed it. They were always the second Sunday.
Second Sunday.
For some reason, they've changed it.
I don't mind
Yeah,
pushing the
you're
days
right.
up. I just don't know why we have to. Well, we could,
We could,
we could
we could do that.
switch it up a little bit. But, you know, every time we change it, there's grandparents and aunts and uncles that make plans to come. And then all of a sudden, the week or two before, we're changing it again. We gotta stop changing that date.
Right.
That's why we set a policy.
But
Or,
if we push it up and then we have all kinds of snow days, that's,
well, they can still graduate. It's just that the other classes are gonna have to go a little bit longer.
And Melinda,
closer to
can you-
July.
Can you,
Split the difference and
well-
not have it be 5 days? Can you say 3 and 3? Yeah, you know what I mean? So at least it's only a 2-day difference. If there were no
I
snow
can-
days.
I could do whatever you want me to do. If you want me to go rework the calendar a few ways and bring it back next month, I can certainly do that. And then you could take a visual look at what it would look like if we started on different days and then where we would end up for the last day.
and Melinda, what's the state law now?
You set your
Regarding
graduation
days.
date.
You set your graduation, once the board approves the graduation date,
Yeah.
regardless of the number of snow days, you can still have your seniors graduate on that day as
Only-
long as you've approved the date.
All right, but it's only the seniors that are allowed to
Correct.
not have the standard whatever number of day.
Correct.
Okay,
I think the issue is just that they were upset that it was.
It's a
it was
whole
after
week
the
either.
grad-
It's a whole
After school, so
I mean, I think we can
get
all-
that worry, because no graduates have had that issue before, so I think realistically. Setting those, because it was what, the 23rd originally?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I mean, to me, that
Seems so
feels
early.
early.
So That's how it's been the
I would
last
say
6
it makes
years.
sense to do the 31st, because
Right.
then you're in Friday, Thursday, Friday, and then they'll have their long Labor Day weekend. And then start the school year. On a
Okay,
nor-
let's,
I'll
Let's look at
rework the
some
calendar a
scenarios.
few ways and then you can select your option.
And then everybody's happy,
Maintaining June 14th as a graduation day.
right,
or correct.
right?
okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.